Okay, and as I mentioned, we'll have the webinar recording posted about 48 hours after. So we'd encourage you to share the link with anybody that might be interested in viewing it afterwards. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So thank you, everyone. Over to William Liu.
Thanks, Gord. And TerraTalk is actually founded by a team of senior technical staff formerly working for IBM and platform computing. That's why you guys are probably familiar with us. And we believe that there's a new way to serve the customer, right? So we want to make sure that the customer comes first, right? So we want to make sure that we can provide the quality of services that every customer is looking for. So as you guys are probably familiar that we are a bunch of people who are experts on resource and workload management, whether these workloads are running on-premise or in the cloud. And we also want to make sure that we can partner with the technology leaders, examples like AWS and Hortonworks. So I'll let James to talk about the OpenLava.
Yeah, thanks, William. So just a little bit of background about OpenLava and where it came from, and I think David is also on the line here. So as some of you know already, OpenLava is a open source LSF compatible version. And a little bit of history there about how it came into being was many years ago when we were at platform computing. We used to work with Red Hat, and as part of the relationship with Red Hat, they needed a open source and a slimmed down version of LSF, and they had to be open source in terms of working with Red Hat. So that was originally called Platform Lava, okay? And I'm talking about 10+ years ago. And that was actually bundled with Red Hat software, but at the same, and not too much development happened on the Platform Lava at that time, except that as an OEM product. And really, it was recently with David getting involved that we took the original Platform Lava and created this open source OpenLava, which allow us to do additional development and add a lot more features to it. So that's where the original the background comes in, right? And as you can tell right now, since we created David created the OpenLava.org, and then subsequently with TerraTalk's involvement, there has been tremendous demand and adoption of OpenLava. We estimate there's probably 6,000 plus downloads, hundreds and hundreds of deployments. Some of the deployments are on-prem. A lot of the deployments are on Amazon. Right? So given this very vibrant community, we wanted to come out and support and continue to drive and serve the OpenLava community there. Okay, so
thanks, James. So we see some trends in the infrastructure software market, and these days people are actually, when they deal with vendors, right? They want to, when they deal with looking at any technology, they want to make sure that they can get feet wet without maybe involving a legal department. For example, if you're looking for any technology, you probably want to get hands-on to look into what this technology can do, particularly maybe test run into your production environment. Right? This is where people, they favor the open source solution, right? Because with open source solution, you can easily look at the community to see how active they are, looking at the code quality, etc. Right? And also, you have the flexibility of enhancing the code by yourself, or if needed, or rely on a vendor to do it for you, right? So, and also typically an open source solution will give you a very flexible, licensing term. At least there's no license cost. Particularly, there's no core-based license cost. I think this is very important. So OpenLava fits this very well. If you look at OpenLava, it is a license under GPL v2, and you can actually deploy that without any restriction. Right? And it is, as James just said, it is a very actively developed so far. If you look at the community, if you look at the user group, right, you will discover that it's really under development in a very fast speed. And there's a vendor behind it, which is TerraProc, that in the case you run your mission critical environment, you can get support, you can get expertise behind it. So if you look at what we offer, right, essentially there are two editions for OpenLava. The community edition, will get you started there, and you can evaluate the software, you can install it in your environment to do a test run, or even do some sort of a half production deployment, at least get you experiences with the software. Then if you decide to really move into the production environment, there's this enterprise edition, which adds additional capabilities into it, and also you have expertise behind it to provide you 24/7 support. One example that a customer, this is a tier 1 semiconductor design and manufacturing firm, and they actually are in the mode of expanding their infrastructure in a very fast speed, right? The existing tool is licensed by Core, which is really not scale when you're looking at how they want to expand their infrastructure, right? Particularly, a lot of customers, when you deal with vendors that are not focused on workload management, you got neglected by the vendor because that's really not their core business. So then this particular customer, they looked around, they actually picked OpenLava because they've already developed a lot of scripts in-house, and they have application integrations that relies on some of the underlying API of the workload management. So any solution that replaces the existing solution needs to be compatible with it. And also, the other issue with open source is typically you found that open sources may not be scaled into the level that your infrastructure needs, right? So that's why you're looking for some enhancements. So this customer engaged with TerraProc. What we provide them is an OpenLava Enterprise Edition with a global support agreement with them. And along with that global support agreement, we help them to migrate from the existing commercial version into the open source OpenLava version. And we also did some custom engineering to enable OpenLava to scale to the level that they're looking for, right? Particularly for a particular cluster, they have a 40,000 cores. So by doing that, right from beginning, we believe they seven figures, right? It's a huge saving for them, for their infrastructure. And it's also much faster for them to get any issue resolved, right, compared to the existing solution. So this will really give them a peace of mind for the future growth. So just to summarize, before I pass that to James to talk about the detail of OpenLava. So OpenLava itself, starting from version 3, it's really new. You're looking at version 3 compared to the previous version. There's a lot of features we added into it. However, people behind that, the TerraProc team, is not new. We are in the industry for, every of us are in the industry for at least 10 years, right? We are the people who are familiar with this field, and we have been working with the HPC environment and the community for a very long time. And also the OpenLava itself is LSF compatible, right? However, we are not stay here steady. We want to be innovative, right? We want innovation. We want innovation in both the technology side as well as the business side. So we're looking to having a new business model that the traditional vendor cannot provide. And with that, I pass that to James to talk about OpenLava highlights.
Okay, thanks, William. So just kind of looking at it from a kind of top-down perspective, a lot of the questions we get, right, in working with customers, the first thing they ask is, how close is OpenLava is with LSF, okay? And so first thing I'm going to give you an overview is, kind of looking at the forest before you go to the trees, is give you a sense that actually, in terms of functionalities, the OpenLava has really gone a long way since we took it from the original platform Lava. The original platform Lava was more of a single user type of cluster queuing system, and some of the additional enhancements we put in really allow it to run in an enterprise fashion. Okay, so as you can tell, there's kind of three categories that we can, in terms of the capabilities. One is around scalability. That's almost the first question everybody asks. Okay, so how well does it scale? Blah 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 blah, right? And we put a tremendous effort on getting to an enterprise level. We've done scalability tests on like 50,000 cores in one cluster. We dump in 500,000 jobs, and these jobs run for a few minutes. Some of them even shorter. And we look at the utilization, and the performance has been proven to be quite good. And this is of course through a lot of effort in the past year. Right. The other aspect that we inherit, actually more like share with the LSF, is the resilience, the high availability. Right. For those who are familiar with LSF, things like failover, massive failover, job, we run, we queue, etc. All those things are in OpenLava. So you get those reliability capabilities. You get the resilience. It's all in OpenLava itself. And the other aspect is from a high level, again, based on some of the key feedback we get on what they're looking for, is the ability to extend, right? And so because a lot of folks have created extensions, right, with LSF through the elim, pre-post exec, a job starter, authentication, blah 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 blah, right? So all of these external plugin interfaces are in OpenLava as well. Okay, so you can reuse a lot of your existing extensions. Okay, and in addition to these extensions, there's also the source code. Right, the source code is available, and there are some users who are brave enough to go in there and make some enhancements itself to take it to another level of customization and meeting your particular requirement. So that's almost from a high level enterprise kind of functional capability. Now the other question we always get is, okay, how about the scheduling, right? How does the scheduler itself do in terms of providing multi-tenancy? So as I mentioned originally, the OpenLava or Lava was intended to be more the single user use case, right? But early last year, David developed and introduced fair share. Okay, there is, in addition to the fair share, there's also priority, preemption. So these are all additional things that have been added since the original platform Lava. And so this allows you to do the enterprise sharing, right? Basically, our concept is you want to share, but at the same time provide a level of SLA to your workload. Okay, that vision and that requirement hasn't changed with OpenLava. The implementation has changed. The algorithms have somewhat been changed as well. So, for example, our fair share algorithm, we believe is actually more fair than the one we originally did back in the LSF days. Okay, so you get to take the advantage of some of the experiences, right? And then based on the newer use cases that are coming in, right? And so taking that to the next level around reservation, processor memory reservation, these are all fundamentally needed in an enterprise workload scheduler, as you have both parallel sequential jobs, big jobs, small jobs. These are fundamental things that are in the scheduler itself. Okay, so just want to leave you an impression that in terms of the scheduling, the enterprise capabilities are there and has reached a level of maturity in OpenLava. Right, and then rounding it up. Again, in a context of heterogeneous multi-user, all those concepts of user groups, jobs, dependency arrays, those kinds of controls are all part of OpenLava. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen an uptake in terms of enterprise customers in looking at using this software. Okay. Now, from a management perspective, originally, obviously, the the OpenLava didn't have like the web GUI, although there was a contribution in the community. And what we've done is also enhanced that. We also added some reporting, right? The other thing is, which is also very critical, and we get asked a lot, is about the event records, right? The accounting, because again, a lot of folks have built additional solutions around their LSF environment for doing accounting and event monitoring. So those data are also supported in OpenLava, and therefore again you can reuse some of your existing tools. Okay. And then finally, kind of rounding up with some of these newer technologies, right? Like Docker, how do you run things efficiently on Amazon, C Group, etc. We actually took some leadership on that. And we did a Docker integration pretty early on last year, right? And we got some very good feedback from especially folks in life science who can take advantage of that capability. So and then on the right hand side, you can appreciate some of the web GUI work, which is not just targeting the administrator, but also you can also submit jobs, right? And again, this is really targeting some of the more smaller users, right? Or folks who are less advanced and are more comfortable in using GUIs instead of command lines. Okay. So overall from a OpenLava perspective, I hope this gives you a good idea of the capabilities, right? And how it has really evolved to a level that it can meet enterprise multi-tenant use cases. Okay, so taking that to taking the capability I just described, right, and just again showing you some of the technical benchmarks that we ran, and this was actually run on Amazon, by the way. This is an example where we'd be really pushing the boundary of scalability, and we got 50,000 slots and 500,000 jobs, and it's actually pretty easy to dump in, to have lots of slots, right? It's also very easy to have lots of jobs running in your system. But what is harder would be how can you maintain a high utilization and be able to maintain the fair share policies. Okay, so that's what you see on the right hand side there is that in this benchmark we had the fair share turn on. We have multiple user groups, right? And so and it was equal share as defined here. And so you can see that we were able to achieve both high utilization and maintaining that equal sharing among the users, so that no one user group, right, gets to hog all the resources. Okay, so this is again just a reference point and a benchmark. Every environment is different, right? And the workload patterns are different for different clusters, different users. And one of the things that we love doing is to engage with users and get into the next level of detail and how we can optimize for their particular set of workloads. Okay? But scalability is one of those kind of hobby and projects that we feel very passionate about, right? On how to meet scalability and at the same time meet your service levels. Okay. So bring it kind of all together and putting a time dimension to the OpenLava. Like I said, actually, it's been a little bit more than a year since we team up with David and started to put quite some investment on OpenLava, right? And literally it was just, I think, last April or so that we released the 3.0. So a lot of things that I talked about earlier, they're fairly recent, right? The fair share, the preemption, the GPU support, enhancement to enable, running efficiently on Amazon. It was just delivered last year, right? At around April-ish timeframe, right? But as you can see, we then moved pretty quick. Right, and the reason we're able to move quickly is because we have because of you, the users, right? The community, folks who want to enterprises that are exploring that has really driven and really motivated us to continue to develop and deliver features more rapidly, right? So as you can kind of see, we had a 2Q release. Then in the summer, we had a 3Q release for the 3.1. You can see a lot of kind of capabilities that are, in terms of functionalities, some of them you might even view as kind of tactical, but some of these tactical things to end user and enterprise is very important, right? So things like making it easier to express your resource requirements for if you have multiple types of licenses. That was one of the motivations. Enhancing our scheduling policy. You will continue to see themes like that as we continue to hear from our community, right? Whether it's packing or striping, whether it's another policy that optimizes for a particular metric. Right? These are ongoing things that continue to add value, right, to our community, right? At the same time, the other aspect is kind of what I call the mechanics, right? The enforcing CPU usage, enforcing memory usage, because you can't really trust anybody, right? You can't really trust any job, right? So that complements the kind of enterprise scheduling focus that we had in the brain of the system, right? And of course, as you can kind of go through some of these items, again, I'm just kind of highlighting some of the kind of the key use cases. Client host was another one, and as we move forward, there'll be, you know, one of our differences is some of these things, it looks like we're implementing features that exist in LSF, but what we actually try to do is look at the use cases, and in some cases, the interface is the same when we implement, but in some cases, we work with customers, we found that there's actually a better interface, there's a more convenient interface, and obviously from an implementation perspective, we look at it and say, hey, there's a more efficient way to do it, right? So our overall mission and vision is not to, hate to use the word, but copy, right? But it's really to innovate and to take users to levels that even in the old days with LSF we could not achieve. Okay? So that's really one of our driving principles moving forward. So moving to this year, where we just we're about to release. Actually, we have released 3.3, right? And again, this was really a major release around the scalability and performance, it'll be out there. And actually, we did the what's new is on our website, and we definitely welcome folks to try it out. Okay, and you can see that in terms of just the pure scalability, there's also other things that are also related to scalability kind of indirectly. For example, how do I configure a large number of hosts, right? That is actually a convenience, but is necessary if you have very, very large clusters. And moving forward in the next month, also probably April-ish, probably May-ish, we'll be delivering a next version coming up, 3.3, and one of the things that we're very excited about that release is taking this idea of guarantee slots with sharing, because fundamentally that's always been the two drivers in whether you have an optimized environment, right? Is how can I guarantee that your users feel good about the performance? At the same time, how can I meet the overall demand from a administrator or infrastructure perspective to ensure that the resources are allocated in such a way that I'm getting good utilization, right? So these two are always fighting, but it's actually a good thing. It allows us to innovate and develop new capabilities to address this issue. Okay. And that's what you're also going to be able to see the web view in the reporting that we talked about earlier. And if you ask why these timelines, right? We don't work on a fixed schedule, right? We really it's fairly fluid, right? It is really based on the demand and based on the folks that we're working with, right? And these timelines typically they align with the milestones and the timelines that our users need. Okay, so we're very flexible in that we don't have rigid schedules from that perspective. Okay. And so moving forward ahead, I just try to give you a list of some of the things that we're thinking of doing, and some of which we have started some prototyping, and there are some development code, which maybe if I unmute, David can even talk a little bit about. The scalability, we're not stopping where we are. There are many different use cases on scalability based on different workflow patterns. Short jobs, big jobs, a mix of MPI jobs versus serial jobs, a lot of interactive versus batch. There's a lot, every cluster is different, right? So the push on scalability is to continue to address different workflow patterns. Right? So that is, continues to be a focus. And then the other things, again, just to give you the flavor, not going into too much detail, is the idea that of making parallel jobs more dynamic, so you can resize them, you can treat them almost like they were serial jobs. You can preempt parts of a parallel job. So that whole aspect of parallel, which in traditional context has been very static and very rigid, we're hoping to make it more dynamic, and as a result, make it better to meet your use cases. Okay. The other thing I just want to point out is, and David can say a few things. Job group, we got a lot of recently for the last month or so. We got a lot of demand for, hey, how can you introduce job group? And actually, the development code for the job group is available today. So for some of you who are brave, you're welcome to go and download the mainline and try it out. We are continuing to enhancing it based on some unique requirements that are popping up. Okay. The other thing is around license management. Okay, this is also something we've heard quite a bit from enterprise customers, because application licenses continue to be the most expensive entity in a cluster environment. And so this is another example where we actually have a prototype. You might have seen it earlier in the newsletter, that if you're interested, we have like a technology preview that we'd love to share and get your feedback on. Okay. And the license broker, a couple of the use cases there. One is license preemption. The other is being able to manage licenses across multiple clusters. Okay. Again, just kind of give you more flavors of what we're hearing from customers. As I mentioned earlier, there's lots of OpenLava clusters, right? And even in big companies, we see, because it's open source, it's easy to download. In some cases, we even see like a cluster sprawl, right? You got OpenLava clusters coming up out of nowhere from different departments, right? And so one of the based on that feedback, a question arises is how can you make that more manageable, right? How can you enable better sharing between OpenLava? So that's what that item is about. And finally, as I mentioned earlier about, again, longer jobs, medium jobs, short jobs. Short job itself is an area that puts a lot of strain and challenges to scalability and performance with the schedule. So that's an area that we're actively looking at various approaches, some of which we're leveraging some ideas from the Hadoop Big Data Spark space, and see whether they could be applicable in the HPC context here. Okay, and just wrapping it up, we talk a lot about compute, right? And that's great, right? But recognizing that in a environment, there is a storage aspect, right? And so anything we can do to be more intelligent in linking the compute with the storage in order to optimize the workloads and better deliver the SLA, those are requirements that we've heard from customers. Okay. So with that, I don't know, David, do you want to say a few words about some of your favorite pet projects here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I think what's important to say from the development and algorithm perspective is that even if some of these, as you said before, some of these items, like a job group, for example, right? So they look like what there was, and they even have the same interface for the well-known reason of compatibility. However, inside they have a different implementation. One of the reasons of starting these projects a couple of years ago was to give people not only an open source version of OSF, right, but also see how these the development can be done more agile, better, and quicker, and with less code, right? So I think at our development side we believe in conciseness, right? In doing things right, but doing it as small as possible, because the performance is all in algorithms at the end of the day, right? You have threads, you don't thread, that doesn't really matter from our perspective. Like, what matters are algorithms, and they have to be fast. And this is basically the goal of the ultimate goal of the OpenLava development. You can see it, for example, if you in our set there was always a debate if reconfig or restart, right? But this debate only existed because the restart was slow. Right? Now we make the MBD restart almost instantaneous. Right? So the debate it's over, because we were able, to restart really large clusters in few seconds with basically no disruption. People don't even notice that the MBD restarted, right? So this is just a couple of examples. What of the important point, I think, is that the internals are different, and we want these internals, to be modern, fast, and algorithmically stable. That's what I think is important to emphasize from development and architectural perspective.
Yep. Thanks, David. So as David mentioned, right? So we're really excited. This partnership between TerraProc and OpenLava.org and the initial work that David did, and then the additional support that we're able to provide, and with additional investment, expanding the team, we're very, very happy to be able to deliver these things and innovate on some of these algorithms that David just talked about, and take things to a new level, right? From an open source enterprise scheduling perspective. Okay. So, so as you mentioned, as we mentioned earlier, right? Basically, it's the OpenLava is open source, and just kind of reiterate some of the key themes that we talk about. The number one thing is users, right? Both David and I and the team are extremely excited to see the forum be very active. We're very excited to continue to work, be able to get the close interactions with customers and get the feedback, and everything is open, right? We do development in the open GitHub. We use those the best practices that are appropriate, right, for an open source project. At the same time, TerraProc does provide some mechanism where you can provide additional feedback, and it also helps to help us prioritize the enhancements and deliver higher value through both looking at it from a community perspective and also looking at it from an enterprise user perspective. Okay, and as you can tell, the forum is quite active, and some of you, I think we've even exchanged some emails there. David is very, very active there, and we'll hope that we continue to work with you guys to drive and expand the use of OpenLava.
So great. So thanks very much, James, William, and Dave, for the excellent presentation. So I just wanted to remind everybody, we're pretty much right on schedule here. We do have a Q&A session open. So if you'd like to queue up any questions for any of our presenters, please feel free to do so. Just while we're waiting for questions, what I thought I'd do is maybe just review a few things and next steps. William talked about the community edition and the enterprise editions of OpenLava. I just wanted to make it clear where you could get a copy of each. So obviously at openlava.org, you can download the community edition completely for free. You can clone it from GitHub if you choose, like James mentioned, but the tar files are there. They're readily accessible. If you're interested in looking at the enterprise edition of OpenLava, of course, you can visit terraproc.com and obtain it there. One program we're very excited to talk about this quarter is a program that allows users to test drive OpenLava support for free. So if you're considering an implementation, maybe a project, this is a great opportunity to get some implementation assistance and benefit from TerraProc's expertise and, kind of test out their support in a no-risk fashion while advancing an enterprise project or a pilot. So you can visit terraproc.com/test drive and learn details about that program if you're interested. Of course, we're always looking for new OpenLava users, and I think it goes without saying customers. So we're also excited to announce a new referral program. And again, details of a referral program as well as a lead process where you can register referrals are detailed at terraproc.com/referrals. So if you know any users running LSF or a competitive workload manager, maybe just considering deploying LSF, essentially what we'll do is we'll pay for referrals that turn into contract customers. So again, have a look at this if you know anybody in the business who's maybe deploying a production type cluster. James talked about some of the ways to get involved, getting active in the project as a developer, maybe making suggestions using the TerraProc suggestion box. There's other ways of getting involved too. Even if you're not a developer, we'd always love to hear about success stories. So if you're using OpenLava, doing interesting things with the technology, please let us know. You can contact us at info@terraproc.com anytime. We're always interested in recommended enhancements, and we would just generally invite everybody to join the community. So I think what I'll do now is I think we'll turn things over to the Q&A session. And just a reminder, if you're looking to answer questions, you can use the Q&A facility that's built into WebEx. I think what I'll do, just while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, I'll probably put James and William here on the spot with a couple of questions of my own, just from various notes I jotted down during the presentation. One thing I wanted to ask, and it doesn't matter whether James or William answers this, but there was a little bit of talk about OpenLava running on AWS. And I was just wondering if maybe you could elaborate a little bit on, AWS support and sort of how I can get started with OpenLava on AWS if I wanted to today.
Yeah, so actually this partnership or the synergy with AWS actually was probably one of the reasons why OpenLava adoption accelerated in the last couple of years, quite rapidly. There's two aspects to AWS support, right? One is that there are some built-in capabilities in OpenLava that make it easy to deploy on AWS, and one of them is be able to dynamically add hosts without having to manually configure anything, right? In particular, something like the ls add host command that can be embedded in the scripts and the post provisioning scripts to enable slaves to come in and out of a Amazon cluster. Right? The other aspect is we also offer, at least TerraProc also offers a cluster as a service on our from the TerraProc website, where you literally with 3 clicks you can get an OpenLava cluster up on Amazon. You can manually add additional nodes, or we move nodes, etc. The other aspect is our focus on R. R is open source statistical language, and that has been pre-integrated with the OpenLava running on Amazon, and we offer that as the R cluster as a service. So there's definitely multiple touch points with Amazon, and we'll continue to look at how we can expand those use cases. One of the more use cases that actually have been more common from an enterprise perspective is a hybrid use case, where parts of an OpenLava cluster is running on-prem and parts of it is running off-prem. So actually, this is also something that's on the roadmap that you mentioned, but how to provide better support and more transparent support for that hybrid case is something we're looking at as well.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, James, for that. And we just had a question actually come in via the webinar. I thought maybe I could ask William or James to address. So the question is, for folks that need job or host level reporting, maybe somebody who's using RTM today, is there anything available now or on the roadmap with OpenLava that would help for that?
Yeah, I said so. You see on the web view, sorry, that the web GUI actually has some operational reports and operational monitoring. Okay, and like I said, it's in it's available for evaluation, and definitely want to come in and download and give us some feedback on that. So that's one approach. I think you mentioned explicitly around RTM, and if you happen to have our RTM, as you know, the RTM is actually based on an open source package called Cacti, right? And its architecture is actually quite open. So it is also possible that we could help you in if you already have RTM to create what is called a OpenLava polar. That's something that we have some experience and expertise in, and so we could also do that as a services engagement to incorporate OpenLava into your RTM environment.
Okay, thanks, James. And another question just in through the web GUI is sort of on the same theme. It's related to the web interface and analytics. And specifically, is there anything in OpenLava or maybe plans around OpenLava to deliver something that kind of looks like platform analytics?
Yeah, okay. So that's actually, I kind of skip over that point on the roadmap. I think you saw something there, platform performance analytics, performance monitoring analytics, right? So the web GUI is not intended for that, right? It's not intended to go into to do a lot of data mining and go into a lot of historical information and then make recommendations or predictions. On the other hand, our approach, at least this is again we're doing things pretty much in the open, right? Based on some of the feedback that we've heard from customers, and also based on some of our experiences in the big data space, working with Hadoop, Spark, HBase, and so on in that ecosystem. That our thinking is that if we were to do something in that area, we would look at some of these big data technologies, right, much more modern, and use that as an approach to provide these cluster predictive monitoring, predictive analytics, performance analytics type of capability. So if you have this an area that you're very interested in, we'll be happy to have a dialogue with you and explore. Again, we're very open, right? And in respect to different technologies, we're very open to using different technologies to address your challenges.
Okay, great. So thanks very much, James, for that. Just a reminder, if more questions come in, please queue them up. Let me. We got one more question queued. Let me just interject one in the meantime. You talked about MPI briefly, William, and I think James alluded to B-Launch. Could you maybe comment on what MPIs you support and kind of what your plans are around parallel jobs?
Yeah, we support the commonly used MPI libraries, including, for example, OpenMPI, MPICH, HPMPI, and formerly HPMPI and Intel MPI, etc. So the approach of supporting that is actually there are two ways of doing that. One is you can have a wrapper to submit a job. When you submit a job, you just have B-sub than the MPI wrapper, than the MPI right itself. That's one approach. The other approach is for some of the commercial packages, because when they call, let's say, Intel MPI, the Intel MPI is going to call B-launch directly. That's part of the things that James mentioned in the roadmap that we're going to develop that. As of today, we already have a B-launch script that is compatible, so then you can use that with MPI, like Intel MPI, in the commercial package.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, William. And we did just get one more, as you probably could tell, just before I asked my MPI question, there was another call on the question on the conference, and it's related to job groups. So, James or William, could you maybe explain the use of job groups? And maybe for those not familiar with job groups, you could briefly explain, kind of what they are and what they're used for.
Yeah, so the job group this was an LSF concept. Well, it's not specific to LSF, but definitely we had support for LSF. Support for job groups in LSF. And as the term says, right, basically it was we had a command where you can create a container called group, okay, BG create group, something like that, right? Or BG create, and then you can put jobs into it, okay? And so it really was just a logical entity where you can manage a set of jobs as one unit from an end user perspective, right? So let's say you were doing one great big regression run, right? And it has say 1,000 jobs, right? And instead of doing B jobs minus L or minus a job name or whatever, right? You could create a job group and create and put these 1,000 regression jobs into that entity, and then you can just query that particular job group, and it will tell you how many jobs are running, how many jobs are started, how many jobs are pending, etc. Okay, so that entity was developed many years ago at Platform Computing when I was there. The code is actually in OpenLava today as a development status code, right? So it's not production, obviously, right? And so that was the use case. Now, what we're looking at is also, as we're hearing additional feedback, is that just providing a container as a logical entity is not enough. What we want to hear from users that want to put more controls around it, right? How can I put some and some of the stuff has been later implemented in LSF. For example, adding limits, right, to how many jobs, right, you can put in there. The other aspect is that the job group is hierarchical, right, and so again, it lets you organize things more easily. So when you introduce hierarchy, so again, there's a number of controls and attributes that we've heard from customers that would be very helpful if they were added. Okay? So those are that's some of the background and some of the use cases, and again, different people use it for different reasons, different use cases, and sometimes when we encounter some user, we remember that we implemented something, when we were back at Platform a certain way, and then we found, well, user is using it in a totally different use case, right? So we'll be very happy to discuss with you about what your use case is, right, and whether that job group concept could be of value to you.
Okay, thanks, James. That's excellent. So kind of collective operations on jobs. So we're 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Again, just if anybody would like to ask maybe a final question on the webinar, we'll keep it open, obviously, the link. In the meantime, I just got a quick prepared question here for William or James that I thought others might be interested in hearing the answer to. And that is, if an ISV supports Platform LSF, does that mean that OpenLava support is automatic? Would either of you care to talk about that?
Yeah. So in most of the cases, the answer is yes. The reason is because most of these ISV applications, they integrate with all versions of LSF, which really means that the integration is done in the command line level as opposed to by calling the APIs, right? This is the best way to keep the compatibility. Because OpenLava command line interface is pretty much compatible with LSF, so majority of these application integrations will work with OpenLava automatically, right? Of course, there's exceptions, right? In that case, that's why you need expertise, or maybe by yourself, or maybe engage with a TerraProc that we could help you to figure that out. Remember, because we are also a former LSF people, so we are very familiar with LSF. With a familiarity with both OpenLava and LSF, we could easily help resolving these issues.
And on the other aspect is that we also work closely with some of the EDA ISVs, and so that's another channel and another area that you can leverage us for, is that we can connect with the ISV and together again help to make sure your applications can run on OpenLava.
Okay, great. Thanks, William and James. I think that's clear. Looks like we've got no more questions queued up. This is just a reminder, we will post the Q&A to the website. Again, give us 48 hours if you don't mind for that. Also, we'll be posting copies of the webinar that'll be recorded for post view. And so at this point, I guess we'll just go ahead and wrap up the webinar. I wanted to thank everybody very much once again for attending. You can learn more by visiting terraproc.com or sending us email at the email address info@terraproc.com. So thank you again very much for your time. I'll close the webinar now.